Welcome to our next Business Agility Boost. We are broadcasting from the Netherlands, so I would like to say good afternoon. But maybe you are watching us live from a totally different place in the world and are already celebrating the weekend. Or maybe you are just checking in today with a cup of coffee and have an entire wonderful day in front of you. So let us know in the chat where you come from. I'm Elise Hofmeester, founder of Twingster, and it's my purpose to create spaces where everyone is able to thrive. Human-centric, purpose-driven, and value-based. Next to our consultancy and academy, LinkedIn Live is a great space to share knowledge, learn from each other, and shape the future together. In an era where adaptability is the key to thrive, it's still a struggle for many organizations to create real agility in the entire system. So I am very excited to dive into the heart of organizational agility and get some perspectives from the boardroom with our special guest of today, Harold Watt. So let's invite Harold to our room. Welcome, Harold. We are so excited to have you here today.
Hello, Alice. Hello, everybody. Thank you for having me. I'm really excited to have this conversation with you. And yeah, I'm really looking forward to your questions and maybe I have some answers.
Well, I know you for a while, and I think you have a lot of experience to share with us. And as someone also said about you, you are known as very accessible and a source of inspiration and valued for your enormous wealth of practical experience and strategic vision. I know you from a time that you led a huge transformation at PKV. But today you are COO of OVB Vermögensberatung AG, and almost every organization is in a state of transformation. So, is the state of agility in your organization something that keeps you up at night?
Well, I mean, having a tradition of nearly 55 years, we are in some ways traditional, but I mean, also we have also overcome many obstacles. But yeah, we are traditional in many ways. That's true. But I mean, financial consulting still has an image of being traditional, which is something that we have to overcome, but that already has developed in many areas. So it's not that the image correlates with the reality, but the principles of customer centricity are deeply integrated in our vision, mission, and strategy. And I mean, that is a good basis for further development. And so, on the one hand, financial advice is a very personal business, and that is a good thing because, I mean, finances are still very personal, and that is very pronounced so in Germany. I don't know how it's in different countries, but in Germany, that is really true. And on the other hand, good financial advice depends on good services, modern technology, software, and as well as necessary data to be able to advise customers well. And yeah, this is where agile methods come into play, and which are currently changing us on many levels: leadership, people centricity, learning cultures, method competence, and so on. And yeah, I mean, in summary, we are not yet there where we wanted to be in many areas, but in others, we have achieved a lot, and we are pretty satisfied with the results. But our development doesn't keep me up at night because I love what I do. And you have spoken of purpose, and my personal purpose is really to make the world a better place for people in companies, and at the same time, surely to secure and expand the success of the company based on that. And people don't have always to work harder and walk the extra mile, which are rather negative terms. They can also have more fun and self-determination, and thus be more motivated with a much better outcome. So that is like the basis on what I want to do and what drives me.
Yeah, nice. Thank you for sharing also your purpose, Harald. And you mentioned a lot of topic, what is necessary to really perform and achieve your results with the organization. But before we dive into that, we are here in the Business Agility Boost, and our topic of today is organizational agility. What is organizational agility to you?
Yeah, that is a really big question, but I try to to answer briefly. Well, on a very abstract level, it means for me transforming a most of the times constantly self-overloading system of a company into a self-optimizing one. And that is pretty basic, but I mean, everything else that is necessary is subsumed under this. And I mean, it's like systemic thinking, change in leadership, change in methods, learning culture, people centricity, creating safe environments, learning from observation, pull principles. I mean, name it. There is so much that is subsumed under that principle, but basically, it's to transform the system of the company into a really self-optimizing one with all the things that really come after this. Yes.
Yeah, and you already mentioned it's about optimizing the system. So that also means that it's not something you only work on in certain parts of the organization. Um, how do you, because the what we see from research, there are still those numbers of 70% of transformations fail, and maybe there are parts of the transformation that fail. Why is it such a struggle to really kickstart or boost that journey towards agility? What are some common pitfalls you experience?
Yeah, well, first of all, I believe that the size of the task is not entirely clear to everyone. I mean, especially high hierarchical high hierarchical levels.
Mhm.
The system of a company with all its manifestations has most of the times grown organically over the entire time the company is in existence, and this also applies to the socialization of people in the company. And I am convinced that people almost always behave in the way that the company's system dictates or enables them to do. So it's about the people, but you cannot blame anything on the people because we have changed the system. And yeah, if if you try that to change that really long-grown system inorganically or like quickly in a targeted manner, the question arises as to why anyone would want to go along with that change. I mean, pretty for the longest time, people have been in the company. They have experienced one system, and so the change must be clear. But I mean, common pitfalls are often that the management does not have the necessary knowledge of modern methods, modern leadership, modern corporate development, which is a key factor. I mean, in current times, it's common knowledge that leaders or managers should be socially intelligent somehow. I guess that's really common, and nobody would doubt that. But to have really deep knowledge in corporate development is not that much in a focus that it should be. And so therefore, they do not understand the needs and the requirements. And that is not a good basis for decisions. And so the system of a company is created by the high hierarchical levels most of the times, or lots of it. And so those managers and the boards should have that knowledge to yeah, be able to make good decisions. And um, sometimes the company's knowledge of modern methods is either lacking or nearly not existent because of the traditional system the company had, and the effort required to enable people to really understand new methods and is grossly underestimated.
Yeah.
And that is not another pitfall for driving change. And changing leadership has to do a lot with self-reflection and personal change, and there is often a lack of understanding what is necessary to do so. And the higher up you are in the hierarchy, the less people you have to reflect you on the fact that you might be lacking some knowledge, or that you might have to change some things, and so that feedback loop doesn't always exist. But the most important reason, out of my perspective, is that change fails because of people, and not because you blame it on people, but if you don't create the conditions for people to drive change out of conviction, the sum of resistance will just stop the change at some point. And yeah, it is therefore the task of the entire company as an organism to ensure that everybody has the necessary knowledge and the skills. And yeah, I mean, in the end, it's a never-ending inspect and adapt process that changes everything, or many things. And so you still have to feel confident in your own decisions, and yeah, need to change your knowledge and you're further developing to be able to understand and still drive the change. And yeah, the reason often is, out of my opinion, the toolbox you have. I mean, as a any person in a company has acquired a personal toolbox out of yeah, anything like leadership, processes, methods, expertise, integration into the company's processes, so that you feel safe in your decisions. That is your toolbox for organizing yourself, leading people, structuring departments. And if you now change the system, those tools do not work anymore, or maybe they don't work anymore. And so you just rob the people in the company of their functioning tools. And if you do not care about replacing them with working tools in that future system, then why should anybody embrace change? I mean, it's just insecurity, and I don't know what comes, and I don't feel informed, I don't feel prepared, I don't feel safe. And so, yeah, that might be some of the main reasons why that changes fail. Yeah.
Yeah, and we also see from reports and research from the Business Agility Institute already for 5 years in a row that resistant to change, change fatigue, lack of leadership capabilities, and being able to lead such a transformation are in the top 5 challenges of organizations who start such a transformation or who are in a transformation. But what I sometimes hear also from organizations, they say, yeah, but starting an agile transformation or creating agility in your organization should come from bottom up. But I also hear you say, and it's also what I experience, but I also hear you say, yeah, but leaders and also people in the board need to know what is expected. How do you lead such a transformation on all levels? How do you experience that? You are a member of the board. What is necessary to understand as a board, as a team, when you start such a journey?
I mean, there are several perspectives to that. When it comes to those grassroots changes, you can accomplish some things with those, but I mean, you often just reach the border of budget, changing processes, which you are not responsible for, and so that is successful until a certain point. At least I have experienced that, and from that point on, you need support of at least some levels in the hierarchy of a company, and ideally from the board, because I mean, the system of the company is increasingly built by the higher you are up in the hierarchy. And so being a board member does not for you from developing further. And that is often what happens. I mean, there are no people anymore that reflect you on anything. Um, Often it's like the other way around, because everybody talking to you has, I don't want to say an agenda, but wants to accomplish something. And so you really struggle in getting a real feedback loop on many things.
Mhm.
And so what for the first thing you should do as a member of the board is to flatten the mountain of hierarchy to a hill. I mean, you will not get rid of it, because hierarchy is hierarchy. And so if you decide on fate of people, money they get, or whatever, there will always be hierarchy. But and I mean, it's just common sense in interacting with people on eye level, and so and constant living of uh, of requesting feedback and real feedback. And at a certain point, you proceed with that and get better feedback loops. But that is something that is really important to have the finger on the pulse of the company, and to understand the problems people have directly, and not to like intervene on an operational level, but just for understanding. Listening is key there.
Mhm.
And on the other hand, you have to be aware that you, as a board member, have to have the most modern knowledge in the company, because you have the steering wheel, or a big part of the steering wheel in your hands. And methodology and professional knowledge determines the size of the steering wheel. So if you do not develop further and stand still in your personal development, then your steering wheel shrinks. And you don't want to steer a big company with a small steering wheel. You want to have the wide palette of tools of your own. And the toolbox thing I've just talked about is the same for board members. And so you have to have that intrinsic motivation to develop further and understand the most modern things that are going on in the company, and not to tell people what to do, not at all, but to really understand your own decisions and your own level of deciding. And so that is really important. And that is something that is often not done, because I mean, as I said, there are, most of the times, there is nobody telling you that you have a lack of knowledge somewhere.
No, so as a board team, you also need to search for your information, and to understand what is going on in your organization. So I know that for also from the other organization you worked for before, when you started the transformation, um, you really started to take a different approach. So, what if you now would start a transformation in your organization? What would you first do?
Well, that would be the classical "it depends" answer, but I like to make it more concrete. I mean, if it's a pretty hierarchical organization, then you might want to start with, not with agility, but with other really important things, which is, first of all, get knowledge and accept reality where you really are. Because what I've experienced is um, that the actual situation in a company is often perceived better than it is,
Mhm.
and also the more progressive. And that then leads to attempts to change the current status quo with the wrong methods, because you try at a different level at which you really are. And so that is accepting where you really are. And it in the end, it's all the same how bad it is, or how hierarchical you are. That's the point where you're just gonna start to further develop. So there's no need to let it look better than it is. So that is the first point. And then often in companies, and that's what I said initially, is a system of self-overloading. And so that means that mm, yeah, many things are done by rounds per minute if you want to compare this with an engine of a car, and not with gearing up. And so you can, if you are at 8,000 RPM, then everybody is occupied and everybody does his best or her best to cope with the tasks. But you really want to transform that thing into have as many gears as possible, just to reduce the rounds per minute that the organization has to do, because then you are like in the thing where nobody has time for change, nobody wants change. It's just another package on top that you have to cope with, and so that's the worst thing you can do, starting a change like that. And if you start with automation and digitization, where you just have a survey where departments in the company can like answer with what is the thing that occupies most time, creates less value, and what is it we are just doing because it's not possible in a different way. And if you digitize that and automate that, then you build trust, because then the first thing people experience in the start of that change is somebody cares about me, somebody cares about our problems, and
Mhm.
somebody is trying to get rid of our problems. And then that frees up time. And then you have to have the commitment to direct one part of that time into further optimization, further digitization, and the other part into acquiring knowledge, further developing of methods, concentrating on people, creating safe environments for people, changing leadership. And that is the first step into a self-optimizing system. And that is something where you really can start really good. And it doesn't have to do with methods or agility in the first step. It's
Mhm.
about acquiring trust and creating trust.
Yeah.
And that is a really good basis for the rest that is to come.
Yeah. Yeah, and I really love what you say about acquiring trust. It's not about the methods or hey, we are starting to work in a lean way or an agile way or whatever words we mention or what we do, but it's really about involving the people and yeah, creating trust that you also do and act on what you are telling and want to achieve. Yeah, nice, Harold. And do you have some examples of like in your past transformation, you took really a different approach? Can you explain a bit about that approach, what you took? Because you were struggling already for a long while in achieving agility, and then you changed the way you acted. Would you
Well,
like to share?
I can reference your book, because I had the honor to have my story told there. And yeah, but it's, yeah, true. I mean, we started way too naive, and with many of those things I've just started with in our talk today. Yeah, we really did not have any clue how big that thing would be and how deep the impact would be of the change. And yeah, so we started pretty naively in the first run, and did not focus on, mainly not we focused on processes and methods and not people. And that was like the most basic error you can make in that thing.
Mhm.
um, yeah, so we were really proud of the processes we've adopted and changed. And then we really, yeah, have seen the resistance in the company, and noticed that that people don't really want to walk through the door in that really colorful agile room we have prepared. And thought, man, it's so colorful. Why don't people want to cross that line? And yeah, and then we really changed everything. We focused on people. We really invested a lot in acquiring knowledge and method competence. But most part went into leadership. We certified everybody to the certified agile leader of the Scrum Alliance. And not because of the certificate, but because of the knowledge and the leadership journey you had to go on. Several months of a journey that you have to go on with a goal where to develop your leadership. And that was really a great thing. And we profited as a company because everybody we sent there had their own goal of transforming their own leadership in our company, and that really changed the way we were perceiving leadership and we were feeling leadership, and then we could see that everybody in the company reflected that leadership changed, that it's much more focused on people, that people feel safe to give feedback and that stuff, and that really changed a lot. And we also focused on the emotional side of things. So emotional intelligence workshops where you really like nonviolent communication, and so to give people the tools to change their leadership and to feel confident doing so. And that was one part. And then we that drove us into the next problem, because we focused so much on leadership that our leadership teams got so confident in what they were doing and so proud of it that like we missed a bit the client side and the team side. So we really had to adapt to that again, but that was easier because the leadership teams were already staffed with knowledge and method competence. So we really could adapt really quickly to that, and integrating customers, as silly as it sounds, but that was really something we just didn't have in focus that much because we were so proud of our leadership change and process change. And so that is something that and when we were at that point, then I mean there's this change journey is never ending, but you have that point where you have adopted to inspect and adapt, and that is the main point where you want to accomplish in a big change environment. If you really see that inspect and adapt works, then you know that the knowledge about methods, about the topic itself, and about the professional knowledge really has acquired something, and so you can then be pretty confident that the decisions you make for the future are good ones, because you inspect and then adapt with the knowledge you have for the adapting the future processes and stuff. So that was something we really struggled with in the beginning. But I mean, that shows if you focus on people, if you focus on leadership, and if you as a company provide knowledge and the further development or the possibility of further development for everybody, and especially for the leadership teams, and create leadership teams. We did retrospectives on leadership in the leadership teams. So that is really that was key. And if you don't do that, then you have the biggest resistance in change, because I mean, especially the middle management that is often blamed. You have to report to the higher management. You have your employees or your colleagues that want things to be done in their way, and so you're in that sandwich position, and you have to cope with everybody, with the upper management and with people that are your colleagues, and that is really, you really need the tools to do both. You need to know, how do I report in that new system to my management? How do I lead? And how do I manage the processes in the system beyond me? And that is what I said before. You really have to have knowledge in corporate development, because in the end, it's just the size of the part of the company you have to manage or develop, but the processes and the systems are the same. So you really, everybody who has like his own silo in a company needs to know how to develop that further and needs to have the tools to do so. And then you have that systems thinking in the company that really helps to transform.
Yeah, yeah, and I really like that you also emphasize on the middle management, because in a lot of organizations you also hear when they start to work in a new model related to self-organization that now often is said that middle management are no longer of value. But I also hear you say between the lines something different. So do you think that middle management will always stay in organizations, or what's your observation when you want to create agility in your organization?
Well, I mean, that really depends on what you want to achieve or what you want to accomplish. I mean, if your goal is to be that totally agile company with network, interdisciplinary teams working together, self-organized completely, with like the budget problem solved and like use beyond budgeting, whatever, and then you will you will have to get rid of hierarchies. I mean, that is like that, and then you will have to either you have to find another position for managers, because I mean they still have professional knowledge and they still have leadership knowledge and can be of great value for interdisciplinary teams. They have to cope with the I mean the new role that is
Mhm.
really hard for some people, but you can integrate hierarchies or management into interdisciplinary teams. That has been done and can work, but both sides have to be willing to do so.
Yeah.
So yeah, but if I mean, how many companies are on that agile level? I mean, that's few of them, and then most of them are like in software development or some technical area. I have rarely experienced that companies have acquired that level of agility in a whole uh, business agility perspective. And so you will have hierarchies in some way. You will have silos that you have to cope with, and you will still have middle management, and so you will still have to provide to everybody what everybody needs to drive the change and to feel safe. And that is really to create safe environments in
Mhm.
companies. I mean, that's not that you are like on the leather couch in a psychological session. It's more about feeling safe to be able to decide, feeling safe to have the tools I need to create the future and to lead. And how do people behave? Why do they behave that way? How do I acquire that knowledge? How do I get the feedback? How do I um, do that with people? How do I open that big space that people need to decide on their own? And how do I create the boundaries of that? Because if I have silos, I always have boundaries, and they have to be really clear. And so it has to be clear to everybody where are the boundaries of my decision making and of my development. And so that is key. And if you provide that safe environments, if you provide the knowledge, and if you give leadership to leaders, because everybody needs leadership, and then that is really important too. I mean,
Yeah.
in hierarchical systems, it's often that the higher you are up in the hierarchy, the less leadership you receive or are able to receive, because people expect you to not need leadership for your own. And but that reflection is really important, and so that has to change in the upper hierarchies, that it's really important to get feedback in both ways and on a natural basis, not like the leader or the manager tells
Mhm.
his employee.
Yeah.
It's in both ways, and it has to have that natural feeling in just an exchange and talk. Yeah.
Yeah, Harold, I can imagine that, because the higher you come in the hierarchy, the less feedback you get, or the less. You already mentioned that in the beginning a bit. Um, th- there's also leadership changes in these kind of organizations when you want to create agility. How was that for yourself? Because you also changed and grow along the way. What did you need to change yourself?
You know, if you go back in time, I've done a lot of linear project management,
Hmm.
And there was a time when I was young and felt really proud of the role of the project manager. And there was that, yeah, I mean, I was in that position and was like, maybe not the best leader, because I was directive and I told people what to do, and thought my opinion was the biggest in the ring, and so on. And that is, but I mean, then when I noticed that linear project management is really painful when it comes to change management and when it comes to interacting with people, and then I was looking for uh, a better solution. And then I came in contact with that weird Scrum thing, and I was leading a company, my own company back then, and so I tried that weird Scrum thing, and yeah, I was pretty picky in what I wanted to implement, and so that failed epically with one of our biggest customers. But I mean, that's the learning curve. You have to fail, you have to fall, and then pick up your crown and try again. I mean, that is what we did, and then we became less bad in adapting to those things, because the the pain of doing linear things linearly hasn't gone away. And so, and then on and on, I was digging deeper into those principles. But my leadership really profited from the point on when I was able to have that systems thinking, or thinking companies as a system, because then I realized that it's my fault if the system that I'm responsible for and that I'm creating doesn't work for people. And that changes everything in your perception, because before you always ask yourself, why don't people do what I want? Why don't they
Yeah.
work in the system? And then you project it on yourself and have that self-reflection where you think, okay, what can I accomplish when I change the system? Why can't people do their work? And so you blame it on your own and not on other people. And that was, I guess, the biggest change in leadership. And I guess I understood leadership from that point on, really. And before it was, yeah, it was trying, but I always felt that lack of yeah, at certain points, that lack of knowledge, where I just couldn't cope with situations. But that thinking companies as a system and the results from that thought, that really has power, and that really changed a lot of my leadership.
Yeah, 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 and thank you for sharing, Harald, because it's also personal. What?
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing here. Um, so that also means, I think, that it's important for people in the organization, whether you are a leader or an employee, team member, on all layers, that's really a different way of thinking of how you work, because it's not only your work, the what you are working on, and why do people not act like you like them to act, or contribute, but really, hey, what happens and how can we, what is the impact of what we do to the broader system. um, so it's also related to a different way of thinking, mindset, and people also need to feel trust, what you already said, trust to contribute to that, and also give feedback also to you. So I saw a question. What tip would you have for the C-level executive so that management feels, and I think also employees feel, the trust and the safe space you are talking about?
I mean, that can be a big thing to accomplish, because it really depends on the system in your company. I mean, if you have a long history of treating people badly and from top down, and if you're like sitting on your throne on the mountain and don't really see people down there, and really are not really that interested in what they're doing, because you're the one that knows best what customers need and stuff, then you really have to live on that thing. I mean, you really have to acquire knowledge, and you really have to be trustworthy in what you are saying there, because most of the times people have learned that what the board says is not in their interests, and you have to be that honest. And if you really want to create safer environments in which people believe, then you have to change, and you have to do what you say, and create those environments, and acquire knowledge how to do so, and then maybe take your first leadership layer or hierarchy layer, and do the same thing with them, and get on that trust level with the first hierarchy layer, with your direct reports, with everybody that is surrounding you, that they feel the trust, because it's always easier to create trust if you have many touch points with people. And so the far away in the hierarchy people are, the harder it is to get their trust. And so maybe that's the first point, to get the trust of others, that they live on that thing, and they really provide that confidence that change is imminent. And then, yeah, just tell people about your journey. I mean, the faults you have made, and the assumptions that you have overcome. Tell people, be transparent, and that creates trust. Because if you do what you say, and if you're transparent about your journey, and I mean, you don't have to tell people everything, but to say, to show that you are prone to errors, and that it's not a problem, and that this will happen on such a journey for everybody, that is something which creates trust in the long run. And yeah, so really, you really have to change a lot if you're on that level. I mean, there are so many levels that are possible where leadership is in a company, and how modern it is. And yeah, that is really important. Yeah.
Yeah, and now I know you a bit longer than today, so I also know that you are a person who really talks with people wherever they are in the organization. But I can also imagine, like that employees find it difficult to give feedback, or yeah, you need to gain trust also. But it can also be for people, leaders in the board, that they find it scary to do so, because admitting failures, we are not used to do so. So how do you discuss these kinds of topics in your team? How do you do that?
I mean, in the beginning, it's hard to discuss that. I mean, it might be hard. I mean, it depends on your board, but it might be hard to discuss those topics at all. And then you just live on showing people how you can do it different. And if that is successful, and people and yeah, you acquire trust, then that is really visible, because it really shows in the behavior you have with your people, and in the company, and that makes people jealous. I mean, it's that simple. Why does he have such a strong relationship to people in the company, and why can't I have those, or why don't I have those? And so that is the first process of starting to think. And if you are further down the road, I mean, then it's something you can really openly discuss, that it is something you should acquire as a board, and then make proposals what could be ways to do that. And maybe you start with some agile coach that is doing a retrospective with your leadership team, and just that starts to be able to address things that you would not say in the daily business. And that is the most of the times the starting point for exchange that wouldn't happen if you would not have started that little step of like regular retrospectives and so on. I mean, but it really depends on where you are at your leadership, and in the board, and the understanding of leadership, and the whole perspective you have in the leadership teams.
Yeah, thank you. And what I hear you say already a few times, to have retrospectives, feedback loops in your organization. For you, maybe that's common sense, but a lot of organizations do not have that. What is the value of those retrospectives and feedback loops, and how do you embed them into your organization?
Well, often as a company, you are focused on what you do and do that more rapidly or more efficient or more effective. And but you rarely discuss how you do things.
Mm-hmm.
And so retrospectives are most of the times focused on how you do things. And how you do things is a really broad spectrum of methods and topics that are beyond that, because it's about how do you lead, how do you, why is it, or just why is it that our projects are late all the time or more expensive than we thought? And that thought process is so valuable because that solves your problems. I mean, doing the same things but faster brings you on the road of that RPM thing we were talking about
Mm-hmm.
just working with RPM and not with gearing up. And
Mm-hmm.
and retrospectives just do the other way around. You talk about how can we have more gears to switch to when we do different things, and then you get into the point where how can we create value, because often in companies the focus is, or the KPI focus is on output. So how much do you output in time, and not outcome, which is how much value do I create per time. And then you can like accomplish the discussions about value streams and so on. And that is a really good topic. But there's some other thing I wanted to mention, that is like methods are helpful but should not be the main part of your change. And for my opinion, frameworks have too much focus in the agile world. And then
Mm-hmm.
it's like just the framework dictates, so we do it like that.
Yeah.
You really should try to acquire knowledge that you are confident in deciding yourself what is the next thing that the company, that the department, that people need on that way. And if you have accomplished that level and reduce the dependence of agile coaches, um, then you are in the position of creating your future, and that by just inspecting what does how has the environment changed, how has the company changed, and then draw the decision what is the next step. And as you know, I have a podcast, and we have talked to many interesting
Mm-hmm.
people like Jim Highsmith, and all of those are really of the opinion that frameworks should not be the main focus of your agile journey. It should be acquiring the knowledge and inspect and adapt mainly. And that is really important, that you do not have a dictation through framework, but enable the company to decide on itself what is the next best step.
Yeah. Yeah. And to really model it to your unique proposition, your unique organization. So not every organization is the same. So how could a certain model or frame really work in every organization? Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you for that. And I also heard you talk about having value streams, working with value streams, aligning teams to the work. Do you have a certain space where you have that overview, or how do you make that visible? Because I know that if you, for instance, work from purpose and you have your vision, your mission, your strategy, how do people in all the departments and the teams understand that their work is contributing to what you want to achieve with your strategy?
Well, first of all, I mean, and that is not common, not always common. You have to create the vision and the mission and the strategy with everybody. I mean, as many people as possible, because that creates that understanding of what you wanted to accomplish with your vision, with your mission, and with your strategy, and with strategic goals, and how are they measured, and so on. If you do not do that, then you have a really weak basis for anything else. So that is the first thing. Then it's really again about creating a system that pushes pull principles compared to push. I mean, where teams decide what they take on, which tasks they take on next, and not somebody else pushing it into the team and pushing priorities into the team. That is really important. And I mean, and then it comes to visualization, because that can get really complex when it comes to all tasks in the company. And yeah, and I mean, if it's a really big company, then you might have to scale agility, which is always much more complex than in smaller environments. So my advice would be, if you don't have to scale, don't, because that really makes it more complex. And yeah, and then, I mean, when it comes to visualization, there are so many possibilities. It could be flight levels, where you have like 3 flight levels, and 3 would be like the team level, where the tasks are done. 2 would be like the team leader level, and 1 would be the strategic level, where you have an overview over what is being done in the company. But it also could be something else, and it could be something that you have created on your own. I mean, in the past, we have like created visualizations of boards where every team had its own backlog, where others in the company could put topics into, but with a wish date. Like, it would be really nice if you could accomplish this until, and that was a wish, and which the team tried to accomplish, but there might be some other tasks that are more important, and then you get like on position 3 in the backlog and not 1 as you wanted. And but that kept the pull principle for every team, because every team was able to decide what is the next most important thing we have to do and we want to do. And so that is, and then you had that like Kanban metric with work in progress and several lanes with rows of everybody who was in the team. And so we accomplished a really transparent way of flowing tasks through the company, because you could just change boards with 1 task, and then it was in another team's board, and then the task switched to another team, and then it was finished at a certain point. And so you could like measure and follow the value stream through the teams. And in the end, we really developed our estimation, and so estimation became better. Yeah, that was really really beneficial to us.
Yeah, and such a system then probably also helps to really make decisions, prioritization, etc., to not get overloaded, which you also already mentioned somewhere in the beginning of our conversation. Yeah,
I mean, it's often to give people the ability to say, I have too much, and that is okay. And that is a really big accomplishment in companies, because very often that is not okay to tell anybody, no, I have too much, I can't do this, or what am I allowed to leave out if I take that task. And so yeah, that is a really, really important discussion.
Yeah, and I see a question. What do you think are challenges for C-level managers under pressure to be more open and confident into pool systems? Well, that relates a bit to our what we just said. But what is
I mean, that is
be open for that.
When it comes to stressful situations, then that really shows if your system works, because then just to keep your fingers out of the topics of other people is really mind-boggling sometimes, because just building, I mean, in the end, it's coping with the fear of losing control and transforming that fear into trust that people will do it.
Yeah.
And that is the main part you have to accomplish for yourself. And as it is really different what has to be done to be sure for yourself and to have that safe environment for yourself. I mean, maybe you were the person that provided further development and knowledge to people that you yourself can trust in the system you have created. And because of this, you just can transform your fear of losing control into trust. And I mean, in the end, a fear of losing control is the biggest fear in management, and having control the biggest illusion. So yeah, maybe that is another part where maybe you really had less control than you thought, and maybe it's easier to transform that into trust.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you. I think that's also a nice closure of our conversation, that we do not control everything, but also need to trust the system. Is there one last advice what you would give if you start in a transformation or start a journey to agility? You already mentioned a lot of tips and experiences you went through yourself and with your current organization and before. What is some last advice what you would give?
Well, I mean, maybe it's clarity. Provide clarity,
Yeah.
good or bad. Trust people that they can cope with bad news, and because they had enough of those in the past, mostly. Yeah, celebrate good news, but provide clarity. I mean, if it's good, it's good. If it's not good, it's not. And if you discuss that on a very empathic level, then that might be the first key to have a self-driving change, and because clarity is really important for everybody. I mean, you have to know what comes, and you really have to be clear about things. So yeah, maybe that's a last advice I would give.
Yeah, and also if you're not sure which direction it goes, be clear about that, probably.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Harold, for sharing your knowledge, your experience, your vision about organizational agility with us all. Thank you for everyone who joined us, listened to us, or will listen in the replay. Still then, you can raise your questions and we will answer them as much as possible. Thank you for being here. And in about 2 weeks, we have a next LinkedIn Live. And I wish you all a wonderful weekend and or a wonderful end of the day, working day. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.